a comedy about assassinating a dictator, a hack that destroyed 75% of a studio's servers, and a threat that almost canceled Christmas. On the morning of November 24, 2014, employees at Sony Pictures Entertainment walked into their offices in Culver City, California, and found every computer screen displaying the same image, a neon red skeleton, a warning from a group calling themselves the Guardians of Peace, and a countdown. The skeleton's message was simple. We've already got all your data. We've obtained all your internal data, including your secrets and top secrets. If you don't obey us, we'll release the data shown below to the world. Within hours, Sony's entire digital infrastructure collapsed. 3,000 computers were bricked. 800 servers were wiped. Employees resorted to communicating by fax machine and writing checks by hand because payroll systems were destroyed. Then the leaks began. Unreleased films appeared on piracy sites. 38,000 internal emails spilled onto the internet. Salary data for 6,800 employees, including 47,000 social security numbers, was published for anyone to download. Hollywood's most powerful executives had their private conversations exposed to the world. And that was still just the beginning. Because the hackers had one specific demand: cancel the movie. The movie was The Interview, a comedy starring Seth Rogen and James Franco about assassinating North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And when Sony didn't immediately comply, the Guardians of Peace issued a threat that referenced September 11th. Within 48 hours, every major theater chain in America pulled the film. The President of the United States held a press conference to criticize a movie studio's decision. And the FBI formally blamed a foreign government for a cyberattack on a private American company for the first time in history. To understand why a slapstick comedy almost triggered an international crisis, you need to understand what The Interview represented to North Korea. The film, written and directed by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, followed a celebrity talk show host and his producer who land an interview with Kim Jong-un, only to be recruited by the CIA to assassinate him. The movie depicted Kim Jong-un dying in graphic detail, his helicopter exploding in slow motion. For an American audience, it was crude humor. For North Korea's government, it was an existential provocation. In June 2014, when Sony released the trailer, North Korea's ambassador to the United Nations sent a formal letter to Secretary General Ban Ki-moon calling the film an act of war and promising merciless countermeasures. The Korean Central News Agency, North Korea's state media outlet, called it the most undisguised sponsoring of terrorism and an act of war. North Korea demanded the United States government block the film's release. The U.S. State Department declined. Sony Pictures, for its part, made minor edits to the death scene but refused to shelve a $15 million production that was already generating enormous publicity. The marketing team saw the controversy as free advertising. Inside Sony's network, however, something far more dangerous was already underway. Attackers had been inside the company's systems for approximately 1 year before the Red Skull appeared on those screens. They moved through Sony's flat network architecture with ease, harvesting credentials, mapping file servers, and quietly exfiltrating roughly 100 terabytes of data. That is the equivalent of approximately 50,000 hours of music or 10 million pages of documents. No one at Sony detected any of it. The attack began with spear phishing emails sent to Sony employees. Security researchers believe the initial entry point involved fake Apple ID verification messages that tricked employees into entering their credentials on a convincing replica login page. Once inside, the attackers used a combination of publicly available hacking tools and custom malware to escalate their access. They moved laterally across Sony's network, which was remarkably flat. There was minimal segmentation between departments. An attacker who compromised a single workstation in the marketing department could potentially reach servers housing unreleased films, executive emails, and human resources databases without encountering any additional barriers. The attackers spent months mapping Sony's infrastructure, identifying where the most sensitive data was stored, and copying it out of the network through encrypted channels. The exfiltration of 100 terabytes should have been detectable. That volume of outbound traffic over weeks or months represents a massive anomaly. But Sony's monitoring systems either missed it or flagged it without anyone investigating. When the attackers were ready, they deployed a wiper malware called Destover. This was not ransomware. It did not encrypt files and demand payment. It destroyed everything. Destover targeted the master boot record of every machine it touched, the piece of code that tells a computer how to start up. Once the MBR was overwritten, the computer was effectively dead. The malware also deleted files and data from network shares simultaneously. In a single coordinated strike, 75% of Sony Pictures servers were destroyed. 3,000 computers became expensive paperweights. Sony's digital infrastructure, email servers, file shares, financial systems, and production databases was functionally obliterated in a matter of hours. The destruction of Sony's servers was devastating, but it was the data leaks that inflicted lasting damage. The Guardians of Peace released the stolen data in 5 waves over approximately 3 weeks, each one more damaging than the last. The first wave included 5 unreleased Sony films. Annie, a major holiday release that had not yet opened in theaters, was downloaded more than 200,000 times in the first 24 hours alone. Fury, starring Brad Pitt, was still playing in theaters and saw its piracy numbers explode. Mr. Turner, Still Alice, and To Write Love on Her Arms were all leaked before their planned release dates. The second and third waves were worse. They contained executive emails, salary spreadsheets, and human resources data. Producer Scott Rudin, one of the most powerful figures in Hollywood, was exposed calling Angelina Jolie a minimally talented spoiled brat in emails to Sony co-chair Amy Pascal. Rudin and Pascal were also revealed to have exchanged racially insensitive jokes about President Obama's movie preferences, suggesting he probably only watched films made by black filmmakers. The compensation leaks exposed Hollywood's gender pay gap in raw numbers. Jennifer Lawrence and Amy Adams, both Academy Award nominees, were shown to have received a smaller percentage of back-end profits than their male co-stars in American Hustle. The revelation fueled a national conversation about equal pay in the entertainment industry. 47,000 Social Security numbers belonging to current and former employees were published. Medical records, contract negotiations, and private phone numbers of A-list actors became freely available on the internet. Amy Pascal's career was effectively over. She stepped down from her position as co-chair in February 2015. Then came the threat that escalated the crisis from corporate embarrassment to national security. On December 16th, the Guardians of Peace released a message warning anyone who attended a screening of the interview to remember what happened on September 11, 2001. The message told moviegoers to keep themselves away from theaters if they valued their lives. Within 24 hours, AMC, Regal, Cinemark, Carmike, and Cineplex, representing the overwhelming majority of American movie screens, announced they would not show the film. Sony officially canceled the interview's Christmas Day theatrical release. President Obama was not pleased. On December 19, 2014, Obama held a year-end press conference and directly addressed Sony's decision. "I wish they had spoken to me first," he said. "I would have told them, do not get into a pattern in which you're intimidated by these kinds of criminal attacks." Obama called the hack an act of cyber vandalism rather than an act of war, a deliberate word choice that drew criticism from Senator John McCain, who argued the attack on a major American corporation by a foreign government was much more serious than vandalism. That same day, the FBI released a formal statement attributing the attack to North Korea. This was historic. It marked the first time the United States government publicly blamed a specific nation-state for a cyberattack on an American company and announced retaliatory action. The evidence, according to the FBI, included malware code similarities to previous North Korean operations, infrastructure overlaps with known Lazarus Group attacks, and tooling consistent with attacks against South Korean banks and media companies in 2013. On January 2, 2015, President Obama signed Executive Order 13687, imposing new economic sanctions specifically targeting North Korean government officials and the Reconnaissance General Bureau, the intelligence agency overseeing the Lazarus Group. 3 days before the sanctions, on December 22nd, North Korea's entire internet went dark for approximately 9 hours. The country has very limited internet connectivity routed through China, and the disruption took every North Korean website and email server offline. The cause was never officially explained. U.S. officials neither confirmed nor denied involvement. Security researchers at Dyn Research and Arbor Networks confirmed the outage appeared to be a sustained denial-of-service attack on North Korea's infrastructure. Sony, under enormous pressure, reversed course. On Christmas Day 2014, the interview was released on digital platforms including Google Play, YouTube Movies, and a dedicated Sony website. It also screened in approximately 330 independent theaters. The film earned $8 million at the box office, but generated $40 million in digital revenue, making it, at the time, the #1 online film ever released according to Sony CEO Michael Linton. The full scope of the Sony hack's consequences became clear only over the following years. Sony disclosed cyber incident costs of approximately $35 million in its fiscal year 2015 annual report. Independent analysts estimated the true cost, including lost revenue from pirated films, legal settlements with employees whose data was exposed, and IT infrastructure rebuilding, exceeded $100 million. In September 2018, the U.S. Department of Justice unsealed a criminal complaint against Park Jin-hyuk, a North Korean programmer linked to the Lazarus Group. The 179-page complaint connected Park to 3 of the most significant cyberattacks in history: the Sony Pictures hack, the 2016 Bangladesh bank heist that stole $81 million through the SWIFT banking network, and the 2017 WannaCry ransomware attack that hit 230,000 computers in 150 countries. Investigators traced Park through overlapping email accounts, social media profiles, and shared malware code across all 3 operations. He had worked from a North Korean front company called Chosen Expo joint venture based in Dalian, China. The Sony hack fundamentally changed how the world understood cyber warfare. It was the first time a nation-state had launched a destructive cyber attack against a private corporation in retaliation for creative content. It raised questions that remain unanswered today. Where is the line between cyber vandalism, cyber terrorism, and an act of war? How should governments respond when a foreign nation attacks a private company? And what happens to free expression when a nuclear-armed state can effectively censor entertainment through digital destruction? Hollywood responded with massive security upgrades. Studios began compartmentalizing their networks, encrypting sensitive content, and hiring dedicated cybersecurity teams. Sony itself spent tens of millions rebuilding its infrastructure from scratch, implementing network segmentation, multi-factor authentication, and encrypted storage that should have existed before the attack. The Sony Pictures hack exposed failures that were entirely preventable. Sony stored passwords in a folder labeled password. They ran a flat network where a compromised marketing workstation could reach the most sensitive servers in the company. They had no meaningful intrusion detection for an entire year while attackers roamed their systems freely. 100 terabytes of data left their network without triggering a single actionable alert. But the Sony hack is not just a cautionary tale about bad corporate security. It was a warning shot. A government used a cyber attack to censor a major American studio, threatened civilian moviegoers with physical violence, and exposed tens of thousands of private citizens' personal data, all because of a comedy movie. The attack that cost Sony $35 million officially and over $100 million in reality was carried out by the same Lazarus Group that later stole $81 million from Bangladesh's central bank and caused up to $8 billion in damages with WannaCry. North Korea's hacking army did not slow down after Sony. They accelerated. The lesson is clear. In the modern world, a $15 million movie can trigger a $100 million cyber attack, and the attackers never need to set foot in the country they're destroying. If you want to see how the same group behind the Sony hack nearly broke the global financial system, check out our episode on the Lazarus Group.